Hey everyone, my name's Katie. Welcome back. Today I am repotting a couple of new orchids that I purchased online. They came in some really hard sphagnum moss. This is not my favorite substrate to grow orchids in. I actually really don't care for it that much, and I don't care for these plastic sleeves. So I am going to go ahead and pot these up. We're going to remove the moss. We're going to trim off any dead roots that aren't doing the plant any justice, and we're going to pot it up in some Orchiata bark today. And what I am using is the Premium Power Plus number 5A orchid bark. This is just a bark. It's really good stuff. You'll see here in a little bit when we open the bag. So, and then I've got a couple of pots that they're clear. I like these ones that have the slits on the side. They're not necessarily my favorite. It's just what I had. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And as you can see, they are quite a bit bigger, but the pots that I had that kind of sit nicely with these in it, it's just the setup that I had. I didn't want to go purchase anything new. Since the moss is super crunchy, I am going to pre-soak these in some water to kind of loosen it up. It is a lot easier to remove the moss when it's soft versus crunchy and hard, in my opinion. So what we're going to do first is actually get my potting mat out so I don't make a big mess, because I will spill this water everywhere. All right, these ones that you roll up are just really handy. They're a really good size for stuff like this. All right, so I've just got like a clear solo type cup, and I am going to pour the water in the cup first. And the reason for that is I am always just really paranoid about getting water into the crown of the orchid. If you do get water in there, there is a potential that you could rot the orchid and it would die. I am not the best orchid grower. I've killed a lot myself, but they are a lot of fun. I enjoy them. Wow, it's just... All right, I'm hoping this little one has kind of soaked enough. I'm going to dig into that one here in a second, but while we are removing the moss on that one, I am going to go ahead and soak this one. The little one that I got is a Phalaenopsis mini mark. This is the reason I ordered both of these, actually. I have wanted the Phalaenopsis mini mark for many years. I saw it somewhere and just absolutely loved it. It's a, and I'll try to insert a photo. It's like a white flower with orange, like really finite polka dots, and I just think it's adorable. So I cannot wait for this to flower. Just super excited that I have this plant. So I am going to take this out of the water. We're going to set it aside for now. And we're going to soak this bigger one. And I cannot pronounce what this one is. It's a Phalaenopsis, again, obviously, Chirma. I'll insert a picture of the flower on this one as well. And when I was kind of browsing through the seller's shop, I saw this one and I just thought it was so unique and adorable. So I just added that one as well. And you can never have too many orchids. Chances are I'll probably kill one or both of them anyways. So, but we're gonna let this one soak. While that one is soaking, we're gonna go ahead and dig into this. So, like I said, we're just gonna start by removing all the moss. I have had quite the issue with a lot of moss lately, so I am like so irritated with sphagnum moss in general. It's like the bane of my existence currently. I actually do use it for a lot, but I got into this mode where I was like reusing it because it seems like a substrate that you could reuse and reuse, and you know, I think that's good to do. It's good to reuse your substrates, and then there's, you know, one, it saves you money, but then they're harvesting less out of the environment. But we have recently found that spider mites can live in moss. So some of our plants, we've been battling spider mites that we have on moss poles specifically. So we've been taking all of those off of moss poles and eradicating the spider mites, but just, moss is not my thing right now. So we are going to get this out of here. And as I'm digging in, you can actually see I've like removed this like outer layer. It almost looks like there is like an inner layer of moss. So like they potted this up at least one other time and chose to put it in more moss. So I would bet that the seller that I got this from grows all of their orchids in moss. When I got these, they were like bone dry. And I know orchids can dry out. I feel like things that have these really thick roots tend to be able to withstand like drought type conditions where they just can dry out really well. Very similar to like my Anthurium clarinervium. It has really thick roots like that, and it tends to do really well when it dries out completely as well. Monsteras as well is another one. They typically have really, really thick roots. Okay, so I've removed all of the moss here. As you can see, we still got some little flaky bits, but that's okay. And actually all of the roots on this orchid surprisingly look really good. That's very rare. Usually when I repot orchids, there's a handful that I have to trim off that are just completely root rotted or dead. So at this point, I'm actually going to let this soak in my cup of water here and just hydrate it really well. Since I got these about a week ago, and I gave them a little bit of water in that moss, but it was still really super dry and crunchy. So I'm going to go ahead and soak it while I remove the moss from the other orchid. All right, so I've removed a majority of the moss from this second orchid here. This one does not look as great as the first one did. This is kind of more or less what I expected. As you can see, when the roots are kind of like rotted off or they're done, you can peel the sheath off like that, and you just have like this really fine, like wiry looking thing. That root's dead. It's not going to do anything for the plant. It's just going to rot and decay and just kind of muck up the substrate. So I am going to go through and just trim off all of these bad roots. This one that's completely dried out, that's brown. Same thing, like you could pull it and it might just detach, or you'll see this like wiry piece. So if you're repotting your orchids and this is new to you, that's kind of what you look for, you know, like if it's brown, this one doesn't look super healthy, I might just trim that, and the top of it actually looks like it's dead. So that's what I'm gonna do next, is I'm just gonna go through and trim up all of the dead roots. All right, so we cleaned this one up pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and let this one soak in the water while we just take a good second look at that first orchid, the mini mark. Oh, this actually I think has a flower spike. Should I like try to point that out in my video? All right, I came up real close to the video because as I was looking really close, and I'm gonna try to get it to focus, as you can see like right there, I'm like 95% positive that that is a flower spike. So that is super cool. Now I kind of regret like trying to repot this. I hope it doesn't totally put it into shock and then abort the flower spike, because I would love to see this one bloom. Again, this one is the mini mark, so it's the whole reason that I ordered both of these orchids. So we're going to be really careful with this. But again, as you can see, the roots on it actually look really, really good. So, and I'm really excited because that means that this orchid will probably always stay fairly petite and small, which I actually prefer the smaller Phalaenopsis personally. So super cool. All right, so the roots on this one look really good. The other thing that I like to do, especially with orchids and most plants when I repot them, is spray them down with like a 3% hydrogen peroxide. This just kind of, like if there's any pests, it will eradicate them. It also, I think, helps provide like oxygen to the roots. I've just had really good luck doing that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give the roots a really good spritz. Again, avoiding the crown and the folds around the center of the orchid so that moisture doesn't get in there. The other thing too, while you're doing this, if you do choose to use like a 3% hydrogen peroxide, I've also filled up like a small cup and soaked roots in a peroxide bath, basically. If you hear fizzing, that can be totally normal. It's not hurting your plant. So just something good to know. So the pot setup that I like to use, I like to have an outer pot that does not have a drainage hole, so it almost acts as like a catch pot or a cachet pot. I've heard it called all kinds of things. And then I like to have something that has a good amount of drainage holes in it. The only thing I don't like about these pots in particular with the slits is the roots will come through these. And once they grow through them, like there's no good way to remove them. And usually you end up losing the roots when you have to repot it. So that does kind of suck. But it's what I had. So we're going to use it. So first, all right, and this pot's going to be pretty big for this orchid, but we're just going to go with it. I don't necessarily like pre-soak my bark or anything like that. Again, I'm going to soak the orchid after I pot it up, so I don't think that's necessary. All right, and that's pretty much all there is to it. The bark that I like to use, this Orchiata, is kind of like a nugget. Let me get like a big handful to show you guys. Ooh. It's kind of more of like a nugget versus like that cheap stuff that you can find at like a big box store or grocery store. It's more like bark chips that you would buy for your yard. This stuff I think is more of like a nugget. So I prefer it personally. I don't like that other stuff. And it's just really easy to pack in there. We've got that flower spike kind of right in the front center there. So it looks really good. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and soak it. And after about 20 to 45 minutes is kind of the range that I shoot for. I will dump the excess water out, and then I do that once a week, and that's pretty much it. I do monitor my orchids fairly closely for like pests. I take the time to really like study them and look to make sure there's nothing moving, no signs of pests, that sort of thing. But I don't spray these regularly for pests. It is like the exception to like everything in my house, just because I am so nervous about crown rotting my orchids. But if I do see pests, I will take like an insecticidal soap or something like that, and I will put it on like a paper towel and just gently like wipe everything down. So something good to keep in mind. All right, well that one soaks. We're going to go ahead and pot up this other one. I am going to go ahead and put the tag that came with it in the pot so I know which one is which. All right, so pretty short and sweet. It's very simple to obviously pot these things up. The size of this pot actually I think fits this one really well. As you can see, we've still got some like roots that you can see through the side right there. So I think this will grow into this pot very nicely. And I don't repot my orchids actually all that often anyways. I think it's like every 1 to 2 years. And they've done really well. When I do repot them, if they're not in moss, I do remove all of that substrate and I completely get rid of it. So I give it fresh because it is so old at that point. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and soak this just like the other one. Perfect. So at this point, there's really nothing else to do other than just let them soak for, like I said, that 20 to 45 minutes. After that, I just drain the excess and then I water them like that once a week. As far as orchid care goes, I personally keep a really close eye on my orchids for bugs. I don't have a large orchid collection. I actually only have a few. And thinking about what I have up there, I think I only have one other Phalaenopsis orchid because I've killed all the other ones. The one that I do currently still have, I've had for like 5 or 6 years and it's bloomed religiously every year for me. So I think that's why I got really brave and decided, like when I saw this mini mark, that I wanted to go ahead and order it because one, I've always wanted this Phalaenopsis, but two, having that orchid for a number of years just kind of gave me the encouragement to go ahead and get this since it feels like I'm doing something right with that one. So I guess we will see. I will definitely keep you guys posted and I will definitely post photos if this thing pushes that flower stalk out and actually blooms because I'm like so excited that I came across that. So happy little surprise. This one, when I was trimming the roots, I did notice that there was a very old flower stalk that had been cut down at the base. So this has bloomed in the past. I did not see it pushing a new one. But that is really cool to know that this has also already bloomed because it will probably bloom for me next year. I have noticed that most of my, the Phalaenopsis that I've had and the ones in the past tend to bloom. For me, I'm in Wyoming, northeast Wyoming. So what are we? We're at the end of March. So kind of like between like February and March every year is when I typically see blooms on my Phalaenopsis orchids here. What I read is I think they have to experience like a 5 to 10 degree temperature drop overnight for at least a week. And that almost kind of triggers them to push blooms out. But there's also other factors that go into it as well. Like they have to have the energy to bloom. They have to, you know, be in a healthy way, or some plants, and I don't know if it's true for orchids, will sometimes bloom because they're like on their deathbed and it's their way of like trying to get their genetics out in the world before they die off completely, which is kind of sad. I don't know if that's true for orchids or not, but yeah, that's kind of the gist of how I do my orchid care for my Phalaenopsis orchids. If you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to drop them below. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in my next video. Bye, guys. If you've made it this far, why don't you go ahead and crush that like button and subscribe for more videos like this one.